Captain Han Taman stared at the empty space where New Sol used to orbit. The moon colony had been home to over 2 million people. Now there was nothing but debris and silence. His hands gripped the edge of the observation window so hard his knuckles turned white. "Still no survivors?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Dr. Yoon Ji-woo shook her head. She had been his friend for 15 years, since they both joined the Earth space program together. He had never seen her cry before today. The Vrexith hid everything. Homes, hospitals, schools. They didn't give anyone time to evacuate. 6 hours, Taman. That's all it took for them to kill everyone. The Vrexith Dominion had attacked without warning. They were a powerful species in the Galactic Coalition, reptilian creatures who valued strength above all else. They had wanted the moon for its mineral deposits. When Earth refused to hand it over, they simply took it. And everyone on it died. Taman closed his eyes. His sister had lived on New Sol. She was a teacher. Her 2 children were 8 and 10 years old, were past tense. Everything was past tense now. What did the Coalition say? He asked quietly. Ji-woo pulled up a holographic message. They condemned the attack. Called it a tragedy. Urged both sides to seek peaceful resolution. Her voice dripped with bitterness. Peaceful resolution? As if we attacked them first. Taman read through the official statement. 47 species had signed it. Every one of them expressed sympathy. Not one of them offered to help. The Vrexith were too powerful, too important to the galactic economy. Nobody wanted to anger them over what they considered a minor territorial dispute. They think we'll just accept this, Taman said. They think we'll mourn and move on, won't we? Ji-woo looked at him with red eyes. What else can we do? We've only been in space for 70 years. The Vrexith have been a starfaring species for thousands of years. Their ships outnumber ours 100 to 1. Taman didn't answer. He watched the debris field slowly spinning in the void. Somewhere in that mess was his sister's apartment building. Somewhere were the remains of his nephew's soccer ball and his niece's violin. 3 weeks passed. The galaxy held a memorial service at Coalition Central Station, the massive space platform where all the species met for diplomatic meetings. Ambassador Choi Minji represented Earth. She was a small woman with gray hair and a gentle smile. She had been Earth's voice in the Coalition for 10 years. Taman attended the service. So did thousands of other humans. They watched as representatives from every species came forward to express their condolences. The Kelthans brought flowers that glowed in the dark. The Morphid delegation sang a haunting song about loss. Even the Vrexith sent a representative, who stated that the attack had been regrettable but necessary. Ambassador Choi thanked them all. Her voice was steady and gracious. She accepted their sympathy with dignity. She followed every rule of diplomatic protocol perfectly. When the cameras turned off and the aliens filed out, Taman approached her. How can you stand there and thank them, he asked. How can you smile at the Vrexith representative after what they did? Choi's gentle smile vanished. Her eyes went cold and hard. Because right now they think we're civilized. They think we'll handle this loss the way other species do. They think humans are soft, aren't we? Taman asked. We've never fought a war in space. We've never even had a major conflict since joining the Coalition. No, Choi agreed. We've been good neighbors, quiet, helpful. We've shared our technology and our resources. We've made friends. She paused. They've forgotten something important about humans, Taman. Something we almost forgot ourselves. What's that? We're very, very good at holding grudges. Over the next week, Taman noticed strange things happening. Earth's diplomatic channels remained polite and proper. Ambassador Choi continued attending coalition meetings, always calm and composed. But military ships began moving. Not obviously, not all at once. But Taman saw the patterns. The research vessel Horizon's Promise received new orders. 17 other science ships got similar orders. They were told to conduct deep space surveys in regions near Vrexith territory. Just research. Nothing military about it. Except every one of those ships was equipped with experimental technology that Earth had been developing in secret. And every captain received a second set of orders, encrypted and private. Lieutenant Kang Daeho joined Taman's crew. He was a weapons specialist who had lost his entire family on New Sol. His wife, his parents, his brother, all gone. He barely spoke anymore. He just worked, checking and rechecking the ship's defensive systems with mechanical precision. Do you believe in justice? Daeho asked Taman one night. They were alone in the mess hall drinking coffee. I want to. Taman said carefully. The Coalition won't give it to us, Deho said. They're too afraid of the Vrexith, too comfortable with the way things are. He stared into his coffee cup. So we have to do it ourselves. Do what exactly? Deho looked up. His eyes were empty. Whatever it takes. Taman received a message from Commander Park Hyeji. He had never heard of her before. According to her credentials, she was in charge of a classified Earth program called Silent Echo. She wanted to meet him in person, at a location that wasn't listed on any official maps. When Taman arrived at the coordinates, he found a hidden military station floating in an asteroid field. Commander Hiji met him at the airlock. She was tall and moved like a soldier, every gesture efficient and purposeful. Thank you for coming, Captain, she said. I know you have questions. Many, Taman admitted, starting with what Silent Echo is. Hiji led him through the station. It was bigger than it looked from outside, carved deep into a massive asteroid. For 70 years, the Coalition has watched us, studied us. They think they know what humans are capable of. She smiled. They're wrong. She showed him laboratories where engineers worked on projects Taman didn't recognize. Strange devices that seemed to shimmer and disappear. Computer systems running code so complex it looked like poetry. Scientists arguing over equations written in languages he didn't know existed. While we've been playing nice with the Coalition, we've also been preparing, Hyeji explained. We learned from every species we met. We studied their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses, and we developed our own approaches. To what end? Taman asked. To make sure that if someone ever attacked us, we could respond. Hyeji stopped in front of a massive window overlooking the construction bay. Inside, something was being built. It looked like a ship, but not like any ship Taman had seen before. It was sleek and dark, covered in panels that seemed to absorb light. The Vrexith think they won, Hyeji said softly. They think they taught us a lesson. They think we'll be afraid now. She turned to look at Taman. They're about to learn something about humans that every predator on Earth learned the hard way. What's that? We don't forgive. We don't forget. And we never ever stop coming. Taman felt something shift inside him. The grief was still there, sharp and terrible. But alongside it grew something else. Something cold and patient and utterly ruthless. What do you need me to do? He asked. Hyeji smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Your ship is going to have an accident near Vrexith space. Nothing serious. You'll need to request assistance. They'll send someone to investigate because they're curious about human technology. And when they do, we're going to show them what happens when you make humanity grieve. Ambassador Choi continued her diplomatic work. She attended meetings, gave speeches, and accepted condolences with grace. Nobody knew that every night she sent encrypted reports to Silent Echo. Nobody knew that Earth's quietest voice was coordinating humanity's loudest answer. The Vrexith had made a mistake. They thought killing millions of humans would make Earth afraid. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping since humanity reached the stars. They had reminded humans how to fight. The Vrexith supply convoy disappeared on a Tuesday. 23 cargo ships carrying food, ammunition, and medical supplies simply vanished between two star systems. They sent out no distress signals. Their emergency beacons never activated. One moment they were there on the tracking systems. The next moment they were gone. The Vrexith High Command investigated. They found the ships 3 days later, drifting in space with their crews alive but confused. Every system on the ships had failed simultaneously. Navigation, weapons, life support, communications. Everything had stopped working at the exact same time, then restarted 6 hours later after the ships had drifted far off course. The cargo was untouched. The crews were unharmed, but every computer system had been wiped clean. It was as if something had reached into the ships and carefully turned them off. Equipment malfunction, the Vrexith investigators reported. Bad luck that it happened to the entire convoy at once. But bad luck kept happening. A mining operation on the Vrexith frontier lost power to all their drilling equipment. Engineers spent weeks trying to fix it. Every time they got one machine working, another would fail. It took them 2 months to realize that something was deliberately breaking their equipment faster than they could repair it. Communication networks across 3 Vrexith colonies experienced cascading failures. Messages arrived scrambled or didn't arrive at all. Military coordinators found themselves unable to reach their ships. By the time they installed backup systems, those failed too. The Vrexith High Command began to worry. These incidents were too coordinated to be accidents. Someone was targeting their infrastructure, but they couldn't figure out who or how. Earth continued to maintain perfect diplomatic relations. Ambassador Choi attended every coalition meeting. She expressed concern about the Vrexith troubles and offered Earth's assistance in investigating the problems. The Vrexith politely declined. Meanwhile, Captain Taman's ship and 17 others were conducting their research missions near Vrexith space. Officially, they were studying stellar phenomena. Unofficially, they were deploying engineer Bae Soman's greatest creation. Soman was a small woman with perpetually messy hair who looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. She probably hadn't. She had spent the last 5 years developing what she called smart dust. Nanite swarms so small they were invisible to most sensors. Each individual nanite was barely capable of anything. But millions of them working together could infiltrate any system, replicate themselves, and systematically dismantle technology from the inside. The beautiful part was that they left no trace. They didn't explode. They didn't shoot. They just quietly made things stop working. And because they could replicate using materials found in any technology, they spread like a very patient virus. How long until the Vrexith military is completely compromised? Commander Hyeji asked during a briefing. Soman pulled up a holographic chart showing infection rates. At current deployment rates, 6 months until every military installation has been infiltrated. 1 year until their entire industrial base is vulnerable. The nanites are programmed to remain dormant until we activate them. Right now, they're just watching and multiplying. Dr. Nam Jinho, a psychologist who had been studying human military history, added his analysis. The Vrexith are warriors. They understand direct combat. What they don't understand is this kind of patient, systematic dismantling. Every day that passes makes them weaker, but they can't see it yet. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late. This is the human doctrine, he explained to the assembled officers. Other species fight with claws or weapons or ships. We fight with planning, with patience, with the ability to organize complex operations over years or decades. We fight with our minds. Taman listened to all of this from his ship. Part of him was horrified at what humanity was doing. Another part of him remembered his sister's smile, his nephew's laugh, his niece's terrible violin practice. All gone because the Vrexith wanted minerals. Are we becoming monsters? Jiwoo asked him one night. She had been working with the xenobiology team, studying Vrexith biology to ensure the nanites wouldn't accidentally harm living creatures. They were designed to only affect technology, not flesh. Maybe, Taman admitted, but we're being very polite about it. The coalition noticed the problems in Vrexith space. Several species offered theories. Perhaps the Vrexith had angered some unknown force. Perhaps their technology was becoming unstable. Perhaps it was simply a run of bad luck. Nobody suspected Earth. Why would they? Humans were the newcomers. The peaceful ones. The species that contributed scientists and engineers and diplomats but rarely caused trouble. Ambassador Choi made sure it stayed that way. At a coalition meeting, she addressed the assembly with her characteristic grace. Earth is deeply concerned about the difficulties facing our Vrexith colleagues, she said. We may have our political differences, but we recognize the importance of stability in the galaxy. We stand ready to assist in any way we can. Several species praised Earth's maturity in offering help to the very species that had destroyed New Sol. Look how civilized the humans were, they said. Look how they pursued justice through proper channels while still offering humanitarian assistance. What they didn't know was that every word Choi spoke was carefully calculated. Every gesture of goodwill made Earth look more innocent. And while everyone watched the diplomatic theater, Silent Echo continued its work. Lieutenant Daeho had stopped sleeping. He spent his shifts monitoring Vrexith communications, listening to their growing panic as more systems failed. Sometimes Taman found him in the monitoring room at 3 a.m, headphones on, a slight smile on his face. They're scared, Daeho reported. They don't know what's happening to them. They think maybe it's a curse. Some of them are starting to believe their gods are punishing them. Do you feel better? Taman asked. Does this bring your family back? Daeho's smile faded. No, but it means they didn't die for nothing. It means there are consequences. He looked at Taman with hollow eyes. The galaxy needs to learn that you can't just kill millions of humans and walk away. There has to be a price. The Vrexith High Command finally realized they were under attack. They couldn't prove who was behind it, but they weren't stupid. The timing was too convenient. Everything started going wrong shortly after the New Soul incident. They sent a message to Earth through official channels. A simple question. Are you responsible for our technical difficulties? Ambassador Choi responded with perfect diplomatic language. Earth has no knowledge of any actions targeting Vrexith infrastructure. However, we note with interest that the galaxy is a complex place. Sometimes actions have unexpected consequences. We continue to believe in peaceful resolution through proper coalition channels. The message was a masterpiece. It denied nothing. It admitted nothing. But every species in the coalition understood the subtext. Stop asking questions you don't want answered. Some coalition members began reviewing Earth's history. They discovered things they had overlooked. Humans had fought wars on their homeworld that lasted years or decades. They had developed weapons of terrifying efficiency. They had proven capable of sustained, organized violence on a scale that most species found incomprehensible. And then they had stopped. They had put away their weapons and joined the galactic community as peaceful neighbors. Everyone had assumed that meant humans had become civilized, that they had left their violent past behind. What they were starting to realize was that humans hadn't stopped being dangerous. They had just been waiting for a reason. Dr. Nam Jinho published a paper that became quietly famous among military strategists across the coalition. He called it The Sleeping Predator: Why Human Civilization is the Galaxy's Most Dangerous Facade. The thesis was simple. Humans had evolved as pursuit predators. They didn't have claws or fangs or natural armor. What they had was endurance and intelligence. They could track prey for days without stopping. They could plan hunts that took hours or weeks to execute. They could coordinate in groups with terrifying efficiency. The Vrexith made a critical error, Jinho wrote. They assumed that because humans appeared peaceful, they were harmless. They forgot that the most dangerous predators are often the most patient ones, the ones that wait for the perfect moment to strike. Commander Hyeji read the paper and smiled. He understands, she said to her team. Humanity isn't pretending to be civilized. We are civilized. But civilization doesn't mean weakness. It means we know how to focus our violence with surgical precision. 6 months after New Sol was destroyed, the Vrexith controlled 3,000 star systems and commanded the largest military force in the coalition on paper. Nothing had changed. In reality, every one of those systems was infiltrated. Every ship was compromised. Every weapon, every computer, every communication device had been quietly infected with Soman's nanites. The Vrexith military looked powerful, but it was a shell waiting to collapse. And Earth waited, patient, polite, watching through a million invisible eyes as their enemy slowly weakened. The galaxy was starting to understand. You could kill a human. You could kill 1,000,000 humans. But the rest of humanity would not forget, would not forgive, would not stop until there was B. The transport ship Morning Star carried 3,000 people, families mostly. Diplomats returning home with their spouses and children. Scientists who had finished their assignments at various coalition stations. Teachers, engineers, doctors. Humans living normal lives in an increasingly complicated galaxy. The Vrexith attacked it without warning. They didn't just destroy it. They broadcast the attack across every communication channel they could access. They wanted the galaxy to watch. They wanted Earth to watch. The Morning Star tried to run. Its captain transmitted desperate pleas for help. Coalition vessels in the area received the distress signal. Not one of them moved to assist. Nobody wanted to get between Earth and the Vrexith. Nobody wanted to take sides in what was becoming very dangerous. The attack lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, there were no survivors. 3,000 people gone. Among them were 42 children under the age of 10. The Vrexith broadcast a message to Earth: submit, or we will paint the stars with your children. The galaxy held its breath. Earth's response came 8 hours later, not from Ambassador Choi, not from any diplomat, from Admiral Lee Junho, a man whose name most of the coalition had never heard before. His message was short. We understand. Thank you for clarifying the situation. That was all. No threats, no anger. Just polite acknowledgement. Every species that had been studying humans felt their blood run cold. Those 5 words were the most terrifying thing they had ever heard. Captain Taman received new orders. They came directly from Admiral Junho and were marked with the highest level of classification. He read them 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. "They're really doing this," he said to Jiwoo. She looked at the orders and went pale. "This is beyond anything we've done before. If this works, the galaxy will never look at us the same way again," Taman finished. Project Skyfall had been in development since Earth joined the Coalition 70 years ago. While other species focused on bigger ships and stronger weapons, Earth had focused on something different, making their soldiers untouchable. The Valkyrie suits were the result. Powered exoskeletons that made a human being stronger than any natural creature, connected to neural interfaces that let the wearer think and react faster than biological reflexes, coated with stealth technology that made them invisible to most sensors, equipped with propulsion systems that let them move through space like water. Each suit cost more than a small starship. Earth had built 2,000 of them in secret. "Why are they called Valkyries?" Lieutenant Deho asked during the briefing. He was one of the pilots selected for the program. So was Taman. "Old Earth mythology," explained Commander Hyeji. "Valkyries were warriors who decided who lived and who died in battle. They flew through the sky and could not be stopped." She smiled grimly. "Appropriate, don't you think?" The training was brutal. The neural interface required extensive modifications to work properly. Many candidates didn't survive the process. Those who did found themselves connected to the suit in ways that felt almost supernatural. They could feel the suit's sensors as if they were their own senses. They could move with precision that seemed impossible. Pilot Shin Yunji was the best of them. She was small and quiet, a former rescue worker who had joined the military. After her brother died on New Sol, she could pilot her Valkyrie through an asteroid field at speeds that made veteran pilots sick to watch. The Vrexith throne world has 17 orbital defense platforms. Hiji briefed the assault team. 400 military vessels in the system, 30,000 soldiers on the ground. It's the most heavily defended location in Vrexith space. "And we're attacking it with 200 people, Captain Cha Minho said. He commanded the stealth carrier Whisper, which would transport the Valkyries to the target. "This is insane. This is necessary," Admiral Junho corrected. He had come to oversee the mission personally. "The Vrexith need to understand something fundamental about humans. They need to understand that we can reach them anywhere, that their defenses mean nothing, that they are not safe, have never been safe, and will never be safe until they learn to leave us alone." Taman felt the weight of his Valkyrie suit as he prepared for launch. It was perfectly balanced, designed to feel like a second skin. The neural interface whispered information directly into his mind. Distance to target, optimal approach vectors, the position of every other Valkyrie in the squadron. "Are you scared?" Jiwoo asked. She was staying on the Horizon's Promise, monitoring the mission from a safe distance. "Terrified," Taman admitted, "but I keep thinking about the Morning Star. Those children never had a chance. Their parents couldn't protect them. The Coalition wouldn't protect them. So we have to." The Whisper dropped them at the edge of the Vrexith system. 200 Valkyries activated their stealth systems and became ghosts. The Vrexith sensors, designed to detect massive ships or energy weapons, never noticed 200 humans flying toward their homeworld. Pilot Yunji led the way. Her movements were poetry, dancing between defense platforms that would have incinerated her if they knew she was there. Behind her, the other Valkyries followed in perfect formation. They reached the throne world at midnight local time. The capital city glowed beneath them, millions of Vrexith sleeping peacefully in their homes. Unaware that 200 humans floated above them, invisible and patient. "All teams, this is Valkyrie 1, Yunji transmitted. "Targets are marked. Remember the rules, no casualties. We're here to deliver a message, not to kill." The Valkyries dispersed. Each one had specific targets: military headquarters, government buildings, command centers, the personal residences of every member of the Vrexith High Command. Taman's target was the Supreme Commander's palace. He descended through the atmosphere like a falling star, adjusting his trajectory with tiny bursts from his suit's propulsion system. The palace's security systems never registered his presence. He landed on a balcony outside the Supreme Commander's bedroom. Through the window, he could see the aliens sleeping peacefully. The Vrexith leader who had ordered the destruction of New Sol and the Morning Star, who had killed millions and threatened to kill millions more, slept without fear in his fortified palace. Taman opened the window silently. The room's sensors should have detected the movement. But Soman's nanites had infiltrated every system in the building months ago. They made sure the sensors saw nothing. He walked to the Supreme Commander's bed and placed a small holographic projector on the nightstand. Then he left as quietly as he had come. All across the capital, 200 Valkyries did the same thing. They infiltrated the most secure locations on the planet. They walked past guards and sensors and security systems that had been designed by the galaxy's best military minds. And they left their messages. By dawn, every Vrexith leader woke to find a holographic message playing in their rooms. The same message delivered by Admiral Junho. We were here. We watched you dream. We could have killed you while you slept, but we chose not to. Remember this, Mercy. Remember that your life continues because we allowed it. The next time you threaten our children, we will not be so kind. The Vrexith High Command convened an emergency meeting. They reviewed security footage that showed nothing. They interrogated guards who had seen nothing. They examined sensors that had detected nothing. 200 humans had infiltrated the most secure planet in Vrexith space, entered the private chambers of their highest leaders, and left without firing a single shot or triggering a single alarm. The message was clear. The Vrexith were not safe. Not in their ships. Not on their worlds. Not in their homes or their beds, nowhere. The Coalition learned about the operation through intelligence channels. Species across the galaxy reviewed what little information they could gather. How had humans done it? What technology did they possess? Most importantly, could they do the same thing to anyone else? Ambassador Choi addressed the Coalition Council. Her gentle smile was gone, replaced by an expression of cold determination. The Vrexith asked us to submit, she said. We have answered, but not with submission. We have shown them what humanity is capable of when we are properly motivated. She looked at each council member in turn. For 70 years, we have been good neighbors. We have contributed to the Coalition's prosperity. We have followed every rule and protocol. And when one of our colonies was destroyed, the Coalition offered words of sympathy but nothing more. The Vrexith then murdered 3,000 civilians, including children, and broadcast it as entertainment. They thought we would be afraid. They were wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in. We are not the strongest species militarily. We do not have the most advanced weapons or the largest fleets. What we have is something more valuable. We have the ability to reach you anywhere, to see everything, to go anywhere we choose. Your defenses cannot stop us. Your sensors cannot find us. Your guards cannot see us. We do not want war. We want peace. But we will have peace on our terms, not yours. The Vrexith will answer for their crimes, and the Coalition will remember that humans are not victims to be pitied or ignored. We are predators who have chosen to be civilized. But civilization is a choice, not a weakness. The Vrexith tried to deny what had happened. They claimed the holographic messages were faked. They insisted their security had not been breached. Then Earth released footage. Clear, The Coalition Council chamber had never been so tense. Representatives from 47 species gathered to discuss what everyone was calling the human question. The question being, what do we do about a species that can apparently go anywhere and do anything without being detected? Counselor Oh Sung-woo represented Earth at the emergency session. He was older than Ambassador Choi, a former professor who had written extensively about interstellar law. He stood at the center of the chamber while species after species demanded answers. Earth has violated the Coalition Charter, declared the Kelthani representative, her blue skin flushing darker with agitation. You infiltrated a sovereign world without permission. You threatened government officials. This is an act of war. The Vrexith committed acts of war when they destroyed New Sol and murdered the Morning Star passengers. Sung-woo replied calmly. Yet no one demanded emergency sessions then. No one called for sanctions or interventions. The Coalition offered sympathy and asked us to be patient. That's different, argued the Morphid delegate. The Vrexith and Earth had a territorial dispute. What you've done sets a dangerous precedent. If humans can infiltrate Vrexith space, you can infiltrate anyone's space. How can any of us feel safe? Sung-woo let the question hang in the air for a moment. That, he said quietly, is precisely the point. Dr. Hong Nari had been allowed to address the council as an expert witness. She was a philosopher who specialized in ethics and violence, and she had spent the last 3 months writing what would become her most famous work. Let me tell you a story, she began. On Earth, we have a species of ape called chimpanzees. They're intelligent, social, and generally peaceful, but when threatened, they become extraordinarily violent. They coordinate attacks, they plan ambushes, they remember enemies for years and take revenge when the opportunity arises. Humans evolved alongside these creatures. We learned from them. But we became something more dangerous because we added one crucial element: patience. A chimpanzee will attack in rage. A human will wait months or years for the perfect moment to strike. She pulled up historical data on the holographic display. Every species in this council has experienced violence. The Kelthani fought wars for centuries before achieving spaceflight. The Morphid unified their world through conquest. The Vrexith built their empire on military strength. You all understand violence. What you don't understand is human violence, because we look peaceful. We smile and cooperate and follow rules. You assumed that meant we were harmless. You were wrong. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species demanded that Earth be expelled from the coalition. Others argued that the Vrexith had brought this upon themselves. A few quietly wondered if they should be trying to stay on humanity's good side instead of antagonizing them further. Captain Taman watched the proceedings from Earth. He sat with Jiwoo and several other officers in the Horizon's Promise observation room, monitoring the live broadcast. "They're afraid of us now," Jiwoo observed. "Is that what we wanted?" "No," Taman admitted. "We wanted justice. We wanted the Vrexith to pay for what they did. But we also wanted the galaxy to understand that you can't just kill humans without consequences." He sighed. Fear might have to be enough. Lieutenant Deho had a different perspective. "Good, let them be afraid. My wife and children are dead because nobody feared hurting humans. If fear keeps another species from attacking us, then their fear is justice." Engineer Soman was less certain. She had designed the nanites that crippled Vrexith infrastructure, but she had never imagined the full scope of what her creation would enable. "We've opened a box we can't close," she said. "Every species now knows that humans have this capability. They'll start developing countermeasures. We'll have to stay ahead of them forever." "Or," suggested Dr. Nam Jinho, who had also joined the group, "we convince them that cooperation is safer than competition. Fear is useful, but respect is better." The coalition debate continued for 3 days. Arguments grew heated. Some species threatened to leave the coalition if Earth wasn't punished. Others suggested that perhaps the coalition's rules needed updating to account for the new reality. On the 3rd day, the Vrexith representative requested permission to speak. Supreme Commander Vecron himself had come to the council, something he had never done before. The leader of the Vrexith Dominion stood before the assembled species and did something no one had ever seen a Vrexith leader do. He admitted defeat. "Earth has demonstrated capabilities we cannot counter," Vecron said, his voice bitter but steady. "Our sensors cannot detect them. Our weapons cannot target them. Our defenses cannot stop them. Continuing this conflict would result in our complete destruction." He paused. "Therefore, the Vrexith Dominion offers unconditional surrender to Earth." The chamber went silent. Counselor Sungwoo stood slowly. "Earth acknowledges your surrender. However, we do not accept unconditional terms." Confusion rippled through the council. Usually, the victor dictated terms after an unconditional surrender. What was Earth doing? Sungwoo pulled up a holographic document. "These are Earth's terms. The Vrexith will rebuild New Seoul at their own expense, exactly as it was. Every building, every home, every school. They will fund the relocation of any human citizens who wish to return there. Second, the Vrexith will establish an educational program teaching their children about New Seoul, about the people who lived there, about what was lost. They will ensure that every Vrexith child learns the names of at least 10 humans who died in their attacks. Third, for the next century, the Vrexith will allow human observers in their military command structure not to control them, but to ensure they understand human perspectives before making decisions that might affect human lives. Fourth, the Vrexith will formally apologize to the families of every human killed in their attacks. Individually, by name, all 3 million of them." Vecron stared at the terms. Other species in the council looked equally confused. These weren't terms of conquest. They were terms of forced understanding. "You're not trying to destroy us," Vecron said slowly. "You're trying to make us care." "Yes," Sungwoo confirmed. "We could dismantle your entire civilization. We've already proven that, but killing you accomplishes nothing except more death. Instead, we're going to make you understand what you took from us. We're going to make you remember. And maybe over time you'll learn to see us as people rather than obstacles. Dr. Hong Nari rose to support Sungwoo's statement. This council has a choice, she said. You can see Earth's actions as excessive violence, or you can see them as carefully calibrated restraint. We infiltrated the Vrexith throne world and could have killed their entire leadership. We didn't. We could have used our nanites to shut down their life support systems and kill millions. We didn't. What we did was demonstrate capability without exercising cruelty. We showed that we could reach anyone anywhere, but we chose not to harm them. That's not violence. That's mercy with teeth. She turned to address the full council. For 70 years you've watched us and thought you understood humans. You thought we were soft because we followed rules. You thought we were weak because we cooperated. You were wrong on both counts. We are not violent by nature. We are violent by choice when necessary. And what makes us truly dangerous is that we can be both civilized and ruthless simultaneously. We can be polite while we dismantle your infrastructure. We can offer sympathy while we prepare for war. We can smile while we plan revenge that will take years to execute. You're not afraid of what we've done. You're afraid because you suddenly realize what your own species would have done with this power. And you're ashamed that it isn't us you need to fear but yourselves. The silence that followed was profound. The coalition vote took another day. In the end, they accepted Earth's terms for the Vrexith surrender. Not because they agreed with Earth's methods, but because they recognized a fundamental truth. They had no way to stop humanity if Earth chose to continue operations. Some species voted yes out of respect for Earth's restraint. Others voted yes out of fear. A few voted yes because they were quietly impressed and wanted to stay on humanity's good side. The result was the same. Earth's terms became galactic law. Ambassador Choi made one final statement to the council before departing. We came to the stars hoping to find friends. We found a community that watches its members suffer and does nothing. We will remain in the coalition, but understand this. We do not need you as much as you need us. Humanity grieves loudly now. We do not accept platitudes and sympathy. We demand action and justice. And when we grieve, the sky itself listens, because we made it listen. We made it human. She looked at each representative in turn. The galaxy has changed. You can adapt to this change or you can fight it. But you cannot ignore it. Because humanity is no longer the quiet neighbor you can overlook. We are the predator that chose civilization over conquest. And predators, even civilized ones, must be respected. Captain Taman watched her leave the council chamber and felt something shift. The grief was still there. His sister and her children were still gone. But alongside the grief was something else now. Pride. Humanity had been tested and had proven itself. Not through mindless violence, but through. 5 years had passed since the Vrexith surrender. The galaxy looked different now. Not in obvious ways. The same species occupied the same territories. The coalition still met to discuss trade and diplomacy. Ships still traveled between stars carrying cargo and passengers. But everything had changed beneath the surface. Admiral Han Taman stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest space station, watching ships from 20 different species arrive for a security conference. His promotion from captain to admiral had come 3 years ago, along with leadership of humanity's new peacekeeping initiative. He still thought it was a strange name. Humans keeping peace through the implied threat of overwhelming force. But it worked. We have a situation developing in the Corvin sector, reported his assistant, a young officer named Kim Hajun. The kid was barely 25, part of the generation that had grown up after the Vrexith War. He had never known a galaxy where humans were overlooked or underestimated. Details? Taman asked. The Rithian collective is threatening to blockade the Helian trade routes unless they receive territorial concessions. The Helians are a peaceful species. They're asking for coalition intervention, but you know how that goes. Taman knew. The coalition would form a committee, hold meetings, write strongly worded statements, and accomplish nothing useful. Meanwhile, the Rithians would get what they wanted through bullying, and the Helians would suffer. Send a message to the Rithian leadership, Taman said. Let them know that Earth considers the Helians to be under our protection. Ask them politely to reconsider their blockade plans. Hajun grinned. Just ask politely. Yes, politeness is important. Taman smiled slightly. Also make sure our stealth ships are in position near their border. Just in case they need help understanding the polite request, the message was sent. 6 hours later, the Rithian collective announced they had resolved their territorial dispute through peaceful negotiation. No blockade would be necessary. Taman never found out if the Rithians had seen the stealth ships or simply heard about humanity's reputation and decided not to take chances. Either way, the result was the same. Peace through the credible threat of consequences. Dr. Yoon Ji-woo had left military service 2 years ago. She now ran a xenobiology institute dedicated to helping species understand each other. Her most popular program was called Understanding Humans, a course that had become mandatory for most coalition diplomatic corps. The key to understanding humans, she told a class of young Vrexith students, is understanding that we bond with each other in ways that transcend logic. We will sacrifice ourselves for family, for friends, for strangers who need help. This makes us vulnerable, yes, but it also makes us dangerous. One of the students, a female named Kresh, raised her hand. My grandmother tells stories about the war. She says humans are monsters who can be anywhere. Ji-woo smiled gently. Your grandmother lived through a terrible time. But think about why the war happened. Humans didn't attack first. We didn't seek conflict. We only responded when millions of our people were killed. The monsters your grandmother fears are the same people who now work alongside Vrexith citizens, teaching and learning together. So humans are not monsters? Another student asked. Humans can be monsters when necessary, Ji-woo corrected, but we choose not to be most of the time. That choice is what makes us different. We have the capacity for incredible violence, but we prefer peace. Understanding that duality is the key to understanding humanity. The rebuilt New Sol orbited Earth's moon exactly where the original colony had stood. It looked identical to the old one, at least from the outside. Every building reconstructed. Every street named the same. The Vrexith had spent 5 years and enormous resources making it perfect, but it would never be the same. Captain Cha Min-ho, who now commanded the station's defense fleet, walked through the memorial plaza at the center of the colony. A massive crystalline structure rose from the ground, containing the names of all 2.3 million people who had died in the original attack. The crystal caught the light from Earth below, making the names seem to glow. A group of Vrexith children stood in the plaza with their teacher, reading the names. This was part of their education now. Every Vrexith child visited New Sol during their schooling, learned about the people who had lived here, and understood what their empire had taken. One child, a young male who couldn't have been more than 10, approached Minho. Excuse me, sir. Can you tell me about the name Shinhana? She was 8 years old when she died. Minho felt his throat tighten. He remembered that name from the casualty lists. I didn't know her personally, he said carefully, but I know she liked to draw. Her artwork was displayed in her school, pictures of stars and planets and ships exploring space. The child absorbed this information solemnly. I will remember her, he said. I will tell my children about Shinhana who liked to draw stars. After the children left, Minho sat on a bench and allowed himself to feel the weight of what humanity had accomplished. They hadn't just defeated an enemy. They hadn't just rebuilt a colony. They had forced an entire species to remember, to care, to carry the weight of what they had done. It was possibly the most human form of revenge imaginable. Engineer Bae Salmon had become famous across the galaxy. Her nanite technology, once a closely guarded military secret, had been partially declassified and adapted for civilian use. Now her swarms helped maintain infrastructure across dozens of worlds, monitoring systems and fixing problems before they became failures. You made weapons into tools, a Kelthani reporter said during an interview. How do you feel about that? Salmon considered the question carefully. I made tools that could be used as weapons. The difference is important. Humans are good at dual-use technology. We can take something designed for construction and use it for destruction. Or vice versa. It's part of how we think. Is that a uniquely human trait? Maybe not unique, but we're very good at it. Other species tend to separate civilian and military technology more clearly. We see everything as potentially both. A ship is transportation, but also a weapon. A computer is a tool, but also a vulnerability. We never stop thinking about all the possibilities. The reporter seemed disturbed by this. That sounds exhausting. It is, Soman agreed. But it's also why we're so hard to defeat. We think about every scenario, every backup plan, every possible failure mode. We prepare for problems that might never happen. And when something does go wrong, we've usually already figured out 3 ways to fix it. Lieutenant Kang Daeho had retired from active service. The grief that had driven him to become a weapons specialist had never entirely left, but he had found a way to live with it. He now worked as a counselor for other humans who had lost family in the attacks. Does it get easier? A young woman asked him during a session. She had lost her parents on the Morning Star. No, Daeho said honestly, but you learn to carry it differently. The anger becomes something else. Not gone, but transformed into something you can live with. I want revenge, she said. Is that wrong? No, but revenge won't bring them back. I learned that the hard way. He paused. What helped me was understanding that the best revenge isn't killing the people who hurt you. It's making sure they understand what they took from you, making them remember, making them change. The Vrexith changed? Some of them did, not all. But enough that their whole society is different now. That's more powerful than destroying them would have been. The Coalition had adapted to the new reality of human power. Some species had even begun developing their own versions of the Valkyrie program, though none had managed to replicate the neural interface technology that made human pilots so effective. More importantly, the Coalition had learned to listen when Earth spoke. Ambassador Choi, now retired and replaced by younger diplomats, had accomplished something remarkable. She had made humanity's voice matter. We don't need to threaten anymore, one of the new ambassadors explained to Counselor Oh Seung-woo, who still served on the council. They know what we're capable of. That knowledge is enough. Be careful with that assumption, Seung-woo warned. Fear fades. Respect must be maintained through continued action, not past reputation. He was right. Over the 5 years since the war, Earth had intervened in 7 conflicts. Not with violence, but with presence. A few Valkyries showing up to observe a territorial dispute had a remarkable calming effect on aggressive parties. The knowledge that humans were watching, and might act if lines were crossed, prevented escalation. The galaxy had its guardian, whether it wanted one or not. Pilot Shin Yoonji had become the face of the Valkyrie program. She gave demonstrations, trained new pilots, and represented humanity at military conferences across Coalition space. She was famous and respected and secretly exhausted by it all. Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing, she confided to Taemin during a quiet moment at the security conference. We scared the entire galaxy into behaving. Is that justice or just another form of bullying? Both maybe, Taemin admitted. But consider the alternative. If we had done nothing, the Vrexith would have continued to expand through violence. Other species would have followed their example. The Coalition would have collapsed into warfare. Instead, we showed them that violence has consequences, that victims can become predators, that patience and planning can overcome raw strength. He looked.